Hello everyone. Today we will start reviewing Unit 9. Unit 9, it's about the Earth. So, Unit 9, it's about topics that you studied in grade 8 and also grade 9. Firstly, we will talk about Earth structure, rocks and soil. Earth structure, this diagram, it shows the Earth structure. It shows the Earth layers. As we know that Earth, it consists of four main layers. These layers are, the first one, it is crust, which is the outermost layer, which is made up of rocks. Then, beneath it, there is the largest layer of the Earth layers. We call it mantle. Mantle, it's made up of rocks, but the rocks here are melted rocks. Then we have the third and fourth layers. We call them outer and inner core. This part, it's what? It's the outer core. And this one, the center of the Earth, it's the inner core. The outer and inner core, they differ. They contain the same materials, but here, liquid iron and nickel, and in the outer core, it contains liquid iron and nickel, while the inner core, it contains solid iron and nickel. Okay, focus on the difference here. It's what? It is here it's liquid, and here it is solid. Rocks. Now when we talked about the crust, we said it's made up of rocks. But do we have types of rocks? The answer is yes. In general, we have three main types of rocks. We call them igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. These are the three main types of rocks. Then, how it will form and what are some features of them. Igneous rocks, this it's when magma or lava will cools down, then it will form the igneous rocks. So igneous rocks, they form from volcanoes. When the lava will cool down, then it will form the igneous rocks. Sedimentary rocks. Sedimentary rocks, they form from a sediment. What do you mean by a sediment? We mean by sediment, it's the small parts of rocks, or when you have a rock that it will break down into smaller pieces, this we call them sediment. So sedimentary rocks, these rocks produced by weathering and deposition. If you want to give the meaning of the word weathering, weathering, it means breaking the rocks into smaller pieces or into small pieces. Then deposition, when the rocks here, when a big rock will break down into smaller pieces, these small pieces will start moving from one place to another. It could be by water, usually by water, okay? Then at the end, it will settle down and it will change its position. So this is what we mean by deposition. Then the third type of rocks, we call it metamorphic. What's metamorphic? Metamorphic, when you will have igneous rocks or sedimentary rocks, when they will be under a high pressure and temperature, then what will happen? These rocks will turn into a new kind of rock. We call it metamorphic rocks. So metamorphic rocks made by squashing and heating in the crust. And here we have examples of rocks. For example, basalt, granite, obsidian are examples of igneous rocks. And sandstone, limestone, chalk, shale, these are examples of sedimentary and so on. Okay, and here we have some features of them, the color, and if it contains crystals or no. The igneous rocks, okay, they contain crystals, but here in sedimentary will not have a crystal. Soils. Soils, from the name, it says soils. What's that mean? It means we have more than one type of soil. Soil in general, it consists of either sand or clay. Okay, so we have three types of soils. The first one we called it sandy soil. The second one is clay. Now, each one of these soils, it has a negative part and positive part. For example, sandy soil, main component, it's made up of sand grains and some humus. What do you mean by humus? It's living things in the soil. Any kind of living things in the soil, we call it humus. Drainage, it's what is very good. What's the meaning of drainage? It means when water, if you will have sandy soil and you will put water in it, then all the water will pass through it. The water will pass through its particles easily. Okay. Why? Because the particles of it's big, so there will be large gaps or air spaces between the particles, so the water, it will drain through it easily. Air content. Is there air in or between the particles? Yes. Here we just say there is a big or there is a large air space between the particles, so the air content is good. pH of it is acidic. Now, the second kind of soil, which is clay. Clay, it's made up of what? Clay particles, humus. Drainage, it's poor. This kind of soil, if you will put water in it, what will happen? It will keep the water in it. So the water will not pass through it. It will not drain through it. Okay, why? Because the particles of it are small and are close to each other. So there is no air space between them. So how will be the air content? It will be low. How it is, the pH of it? It's alkaline. Now, if you want to plant any kind of plant, this plant, it needs the roots of it, it should be covered with water. There should be water. Now, if you will plant it in a sandy soil, now all the water will drain through the particles and the plant will not be able to get water. But if you will plant it in a clay soil, in this case, when you will water it, now what will happen? The particles will store this water and the root will be covered with water for always, so there will be no air. A root to grow or a plant to grow, it needs water and it needs air. Now, in here, there will be water, but there will be no air. So in this case, it's not good. It's not a good soil for planting. Now, both of them, they are not perfect soils for planting. There is another kind of soil, we call it loam. Loam, this kind of soil, it's what? It's a mixture between the first one and the second one. So it has some large grains and small grains. The drainage, it will be between, okay? But it's not very good and it's not poor, it's between. The air content also, it will be good. There will be air, okay? And the pH of it will vary. It depends on what kind of substances or fertilizers and these things they will use. Check your understanding. Your task. Fossils and the age of the earth. Fossils, what do you mean by fossils? If you want to give a simple definition for fossils, we will say fossils are the remains of dead bodies. Fossils are formed from the bodies of ancient plants and animals that are quickly covered by a mud or sand, which prevents decay. What happened here? When any living thing will die, if this if the dead body of this organism will be covered with sand or mud, what will happen? This body will turn to be fossil before it start to decay. Then it's like how they estimated the age of Earth. They estimated the age of Earth depending on the fossils, and depending on or estimating how long before these organisms were living on the Earth. So by knowing the age of these organisms, then they estimated the age of the Earth. Rock layers, how the layers it will form. When I just explained the weathering, when I explained the weathering, I said weathering, we mean by it's breaking the rocks into smaller pieces. So when these small pieces, it will move from one place to another, as we said, by water, for example, then these small pieces of rocks, it will start collecting or gathering on each other until it will form layers. Then the fossil record. Fossil record, also as I mentioned before, they used fossil records to estimate the age of Earth. And the history of Earth, okay, the age of Earth, it's divided into periods and era, okay. For example, during this period, this kind of organism was living. During this another period, also this kind of organism was living. So by knowing, when they will find the fossil, okay, when they will know this fossil it belongs to which organism, then they can determine this organism in which period was living. Okay, layer name, as you can see here, we have these layers, the age of it. For example, the first one, it's about 2.5 million years ago. This kind of plants, flowering plants, okay, were living in during this period of time. And insects, there was insect and reptiles, and the same thing it's for the others. Fossils and rocks. Fossils, where we can find fossils, we can find them in rocks. We mentioned three types of rocks: sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous rocks. So the fossils, we will find them only in sedimentary rocks. Maybe you will have a question that it says, why we cannot find fossils in igneous rocks? The answer will be, igneous rocks are rocks that it form from magma or lava. So the high temperature of lava and magma, it will melt the dead bodies before it will turn into fossils. The same thing it's with metamorphic. Metamorphic rocks, we said, are rocks that it will form when there will be a high pressure and temperature. The same thing here. If there will be a dead organism, if this dead organism, there will be it will be under high pressure or temperature, what will happen to it? It will not turn to be fossil. What will happen to it? It will melt because of the high temperature and pressure. Recent estimates on the age of the Earth. Now we were explaining how they estimate the age of the Earth by depending on the kind of fossils that they found. But nowadays they depend on another way, which is more accurate than the first one. This way, it's what? It's by using radioactive elements. Okay. Check your understanding, your task. That was everything for this lesson. I hope you got benefit from it. Please watch the video, write a comment, and if you still have a question, concerns, write a comment in the video and I will answer you. Thank you. and have a good day.